I've been married for 10 years. I, 32M, fell in love with my wife, now 31F, in college, and everything has worked out until now. We married very young and it felt like an amazing love story. We have been through a lot together, but one thing I have hardly ever questioned is the strength of our bond. Now things are changing at a rapid pace. Over the past year, we have revealed things that have severely damaged our relationship. I am a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, from multiple parties, at different ages, and I held that in for years, resulting in a lot of repressed pain that would inevitably hinder my emotional intelligence. I'm working on this. I didn't tell my wife until about one of the occurrences until about 5 or 6 years ago. Then I told her about the rest about 11 months ago. I was so embarrassed by all of it and hid it from the world. Therapy has done wonders for me in realizing that it was absolutely not my fault. It just sucks that it took me this long to get into therapy, but I'm doing the best I can. What was my fault was the intermittent adult content usage that I kept hidden from the world. While it should be a private thing, I also kept it from my wife. I was stupid and didn't think it would affect anyone. I just had a lot of privacy/trust issues that I never acknowledged and didn't want to ever talk about adult content. Adult content was introduced to me at a very early age and it became an addiction at some points. Adult content was there all of the times I was abused. I always fought it off, but it would creep back in whenever I felt alone in life. Adult content hardly came up in conversation between my wife and I, but there was a lie that I told at the beginning of our relationship that was so small and stupid. If I had never told that lie, I feel like things could be different. We could have even talked about her feelings around adult content, but that didn't happen. I have always been a pretty honest person, but I felt compelled to lie in the moment for reasons I did not really understand at the time. I just felt defensive and scared that I would be judged due to her religion. If I could go back, I wouldn't have done that, but I can't. That lie has come up multiple times and I just couldn't figure out how to come clean, so I just avoided it. I finally came clean to her because of many reasons. I learned adult content can be seen as cheating, and I just couldn't lie about the small lie anymore. I accepted full responsibility, and I regret ever lying and deceiving her. Along with my reveals to my wife, she let me in on some things. She let me know that she almost called our wedding off because she still had feelings for her ex. I was second choice. She kept that from me for over a decade. She felt pressure from her mother to marry me due to religious reasons. They are Jehovah's Witnesses. I knew some of that at the time, but I had no idea that her reasoning to marry me was mostly out of fear and desperation. This has wrecked me quite a bit. We grew so much closer after these events. Unfortunately, things took a turn about 5 to 6 months ago. She told me that she needed space because she was hurt, understandably so. It wasn't the adult content usage, but rather the lying and the covering up of said lie that really hurt her. I gave her some space, but that space has grown so much. She has been pushing me away over and over, and I'm reaching my breaking point. The distance is growing as she's back in college, going to parties/bars, hardly seeing me. She prioritizes school, seeing her friends, and her school clubs over seeing me or even trying to speak any of my love languages. Meanwhile, I am working while she's been in school. I go to school as well, cook our meals, take care of our home, and go out of my way to try to make her feel loved, speaking her love languages. It's a one-way relationship. I've been so supportive of her, but I don't see any love back. It's exhausting, especially because she hardly ever want to talk about our problems and I feel gaslighted a lot of the time. Yesterday, she told me that she never felt like she was in love with me, despite her telling me the opposite before. She has always felt like I'm an amazing guy and she does love me, but the in love part wasn't reached. She always felt like I was much more in love with her, as I have felt. She gave more insight on me being second choice, and the pressures she faced when we were to get married. My heart is broken. We aren't gelling and our relationship is at its absolute worst. Both individual and couples therapy have been suggested to her. The latter she has refused, but the former she has possibly agreed to. She says that a lot of these issues are her own, and that I'm an amazing person, despite my mistakes. She hasn't been trying at all, and I deserve so much more, as she has said repeatedly. We both deserve happiness, but this is not how things should be going. I don't know what to do, but I feel like divorce is imminent. I don't even know why I'm posting this. Maybe I'm just seeking any sort of advice. I'm desperate. Update edit, she cheated on me. I'm defeated. Update, finally filed. It has almost been a year since D-Day, and I finally filed. Pre-affair, I would have never considered reconciling, but some of that changed when it happened to me. I love the hell out of my partner. I mean, I essentially grew up with her. The affair ruined me though. I was such an angry person when I found out and all I could feel was a cycle of rage, deep sadness, and more. Even had a brief suicidal moment. That first day was the worst day of my life. I blew up at her, pacing the room and yelling at her for the first time ever. I was in disbelief. She seemed so sorry, and the person who I had loved so incredibly deeply for the past 12 years sat there and cried as I broke down. I asked that the affair be stopped. She finally obliged, but fell into it again rather quickly, within a week or two, because she said I wasn't showing her any love or support. We talked about divorce briefly and it was over. But then we lived together, even though we were separated, for the next 6 months or so. I knew he was still around. She still maintains that it wasn't a relationship, yet she was going to move in with him at the end of that 6-month period. Just doesn't make logical sense. She has since went to therapy and they have talked about her self-sabotaging because she made a mistake, so she felt the need to accept that mistake as her new life and that she didn't deserve me. Those 6 months were so incredibly hard for me, so much so that I struggled to do simple things. Like file for divorce. I know it's not super complicated, but it was so hard for me because I was more stressed than ever. I just tried to stay afloat. Since she moved out, she broke it off with the guy. Meanwhile, I've taken the year to regain happiness and love for myself. I've been rather successful, and was even set up with a friend of a friend. This girl appreciates and loves me. My ex has been trying to get me back for the past month and a half, probably partly due to her seeing me happy with another person. I see my ex weekly to trade my dog, and I had been open and transparent that I had dated a little and then found a great girl, also ultra transparent with my new GF. She wanted to see me happy, but she was hurting. I had been talking about divorce for months and slowly worked on getting the papers filled out. I needed to take the final steps of filing and I did it. I don't think my ex ever took me seriously because now she is crying wanting me back. It's been so hard for me because it actually seems remorseful, but it's too little too late. Some may think it's wrong or irrational, but I have held compassion for my ex. I know of her problems and struggles, and I just want to see her happy. I just couldn't get past her affair and how it hurt me so badly. When I look at her, all I see is him lurking around. I'm rather proud of myself for being courageous enough to walk away from a marriage that turned very toxic. I never wanted any of that, but she took me for granted and didn't comply with my boundaries. She had many chances to stop, and she didn't. Now the papers are in and she is practically begging for me to reconsider. It's a tragic situation. There was a lot of pain this weekend, especially after I told my ex that I filed. She cried and cried, but I had to choose me. I am a very empathetic person, and it hurts to watch people in pain, so this really hurt me. Through all of the bad stuff that I had to endure over the past year, I feel blessed to have come across a new person who values and loves me. She has shown so many healthy qualities and leads with respect and compassion. I'm grateful. I deserve happiness, and I may have found it, but I'm taking it slow. Now on to the next story. Story 2. I insulted my boyfriend after discovering his secret. My boyfriend Ben 28 meters, and I 25F have been dating for almost 2 years. While our relationship is not perfect, it's pretty damn close. Our biggest disagreement was when I switched oat milk brands and he kept forgetting and bringing the other brand. We're both quite naturally calm people and prefer a constructive discussion to a heated argument. This is why what happened last week caught me off guard. Towards the beginning of our relationship, when we weren't exclusive, Ben had a fling with a coworker, let's call her Steph. He is the head of IT at a major firm and she works in a different department, so they only see each other occasionally, even more so now that he switched to remote work 2 days a week. When he told me about their fling and I talked to my friends about it, they said I wasn't allowed to be bothered about it as our relationship wasn't defined at the time and they only slept together once. Some days I will fixate on it and wonder if he talked to Steph at work and if she still fancied him. I know I'm not allowed to monitor his interactions with anyone and would never try to control him, but it does make me feel something when I think about him even being near her. I don't know if it's jealousy or insecurity or even if it's rational. Anyway, last week we got invited to a dinner party hosted by his boss. I've been to a couple of his office parties before but only interacted with a couple people and usually was glued to Ben's side all night since I am a bit of an introvert. From my immediate impression, Ben's boss is a bit of a rich prick, but he knew how to throw a good enough party that I began to loosen up and interact with more than 2 people all night. As a teacher, I've always felt insecure around people who make so much more money than me and always felt like they looked down on me, but that couldn't have been further from the truth. I was immediately included on the inside jokes, made a couple of my own and even got invited to a double date with one of his coworkers and his wife. While Ben was grabbing me some food, one of his friends made a passing comment about Steph. She was at the party but stayed away from the group we were hanging out with. I said I don't care about her, but I also have nothing to talk to her about, which is true. I wasn't about to go compare notes with her, and the fact that she did stay away from us did put me at ease and made me not as wary of her. His friend laughed and said, well then you might feel the same way about Molly. Molly was another coworker of Ben's who I had actually gotten on with the whole night. I was confused and didn't understand what he was trying to say. When he saw my reaction, he completely clammed up, but I demanded he explain himself. Another one of his friends from the group said that Molly and Ben slept together. To say I was shocked is an understatement. I then asked how many other girls Ben had slept with from the office and they told me they knew of 4 different girls. At that point Ben came back, unaware his friends had spilled his secrets but picked up on the tense atmosphere. Internally I was fuming and hurt, but I kept a cool facade, and when Ben asked what was wrong I just looked at him and said, your friends were just informing me that you're the office slut. He looked shocked and I left to go to the bathroom to calm down. I knew if I stayed at this party any longer I would have a breakdown and needed to leave. So I went straight to our car and drove home without telling him. When I got back home I replied to his numerous texts about where I was and told him I came home and he could find his own way back. He got home around an hour after me, and by that time I had already cried my feelings out and was ready to have a conversation. He came into the house absolutely livid, which I didn't understand because he was the one who lied to me. He's never even raised his voice at me for anything before, but he was shouting about how I embarrassed him, and word had gotten around to his other coworkers because I reacted immaturely. I tried to explain my position, that how would he feel if he found out I had slept with 4 of my coworkers and never told him. He just kept reiterating that he never had a relationship with them and it was just sex. I knew going into our relationship he was way more experienced than me sexually, but I refused to believe he could sleep with these women and not feel anything for them, but that is beside the point and he should have told me. But all he is hung up on is that I insulted him to his friends. When he was done yelling, he said he was going to stay at his brother's house to calm down and not to contact him until he cooled down. I told him I wouldn't contact him first because I'm not in the wrong, he is. It's been a week since he's been at his brother's house and we still haven't talked. I have no clue where we go from here. Was I wrong to react the way I did? I didn't think I was, but now I'm second guessing myself. I didn't think calling him the office slut would elicit this reaction, but I don't think it was a lie either. Should I apologize or wait for him to make the first move? My issue is not so much with him sleeping with the other women but hiding it. Comments. Mobile_prune_3207. Where did he lie? Did he tell you that he had only ever slept with Steph? Or did you assume that she was the only one? Either way, I do think it was really unnecessary to make that comment in front of his coworkers. Your reaction was not a cool facade. Oop, we had a discussion about previous partners and he never mentioned them before. He said he didn't count them as partners and only told me about actual girlfriends he had. Nsfoot 17. Didn't you post this on ID yesterday and then delete your account when you got told you were the asshole, lol? Oop, I didn't delete it, the mods deleted it, and so I messaged one of them about where I should post it instead and they said to check other suitable subreddits. I much prefer the response here. There was nothing productive in that sub anyway. Oop, I think having some space from it and seeing so many unbiased perspectives I can understand where I went wrong. TBH, I knew what I said wasn't right, but I was trying to justify my position by saying he was also wrong. But my actions are my actions and I shoulder responded more maturely. I think my comment did come from a vindictive place and for that I will apologize, but I think I can only move forward if I get the same thing back. Caballero 12840. Few things mean as little as a conditional apology. Update 1. I just want to say thanks for everyone's response. I can't reply to them all, but I have read what everyone has written and just need to clarify a few things. We had discussed previous partners, but he omitted ONS as he didn't consider them partners and only told me about girlfriends he had. Ben is my first boyfriend and I had only ever slept with one guy before, but that man wasn't my boyfriend either, but I still disclosed it. There is some speculation I went through his phone and badger him about Steph. That is not true at all. I knew my issues with Steph were my own and never made him answer for them. Even when he told me, I was slightly upset, but again it was something we discussed and I got advice from my friends about we moved forward from. I did not yell out the comment I made. It was only in front of Ben and 2 of his work friends. I did not ask his friends who the other 2 girls were, as I thought that should come from Ben. I don't know when the encounters with the other 3 girls happened. I am aware my comment was wrong and I am fully ready to apologize for that and for leaving him stranded. He had to get a lift from his brother. In my post I wrote our car. That's not true, I just think of it that way because I use it more, but it's actually his car. I made a typo in the title. I'm 25 and Ben is 28. Anyway, an actual update. I texted him this morning saying, hey, I know you asked me not to contact you first, but I've given you a week and really feel like we need to have a conversation. I hope you've been doing okay. I didn't want to start apologizing or questioning him over text. I did that about 6:30 before I left for work and was teaching all day, so I knew I wouldn't be able to constantly check my phone. It's lunchtime right now and he's responded saying he's at work, which is confusing because Friday and Monday are his remote work days, so I don't understand why he's gone in. I texted back and said we can talk after work if he wanted to come home, and he agreed. I honestly have no clue how tonight is going to go. I really don't want to break up. I know a lot of you are gonna say I don't have a backbone for messaging him first, but I haven't been able to eat or sleep all week and this has been so mentally and physically exhausting. My workload this week has been crushing and this added stress has made me reach my limit. Comments. Negative product 6301. When I first started dating my husband, we were going to New Year's party and I knew someone I had slept with prior to our relationship would be there. I gave him the heads up. I didn't want him blindsided by some asshole trying to provoke him or catch him off guard. It wasn't his business. It happened long before him. I didn't need to disclose, but it was the respectful thing to do. I hate being blindsided. I also hate being used as a weapon in head games. It was lucky I gave him the heads up. When someone went up to him and told him, he was already armed with the information and wasn't the one that ended up looking like the dick. Standard. Middle 6229. I'm still fixated on the oat milk brand switch. Thoughtful face, person shrugging. Avazella 6. Please tell me it's Oatly. Meme Parmesan. Dude, Oatly fucking stomps. Update 2. Hey everyone, it's Saturday and I'm still in bed and thought I should give an update. Before I do, I just wanted to clarify one thing. I switched from All Pro to Oatly, and it's much better. Also, I'm paraphrasing since I can't remember everything we said. So I was quite nervous about Ben coming over after work. I was meant to do some work but was too distracted to even attempt it. I did, however, as a gesture of good faith, decide to cook his favorite meal for him and maybe use it as an icebreaker. I did take someone's advice of writing everything down just so I could keep my thoughts clear. After work I texted asking him what time he would be over, and he said he'd text me when he left work and takes him about 30 minutes on the tube to reach home. He got here about 6-ish and rang the doorbell, which was so weird. He still had his keys. I opened the door and we kinda awkwardly greeted each other. Immediate impression was that he didn't look angry or upset, just cold. I sat down on the sofa and expected him to join me, but he just stood in the middle of the room with his hands in his trousers. I said I was glad he came over and he just nodded. Then I said it was weird being in his house by myself all week, and all he said was I'm sure it was. He asked me why I texted him now and not sooner, and I said it was because he told me not to contact him. I told him I'd been miserable and that I was sorry for the comment I made in leaving and especially for taking his car. He said he didn't give a shit about the car, just that I had left without telling him. I got a chance to finally explain myself to him. I never cared how many women he slept with before. I'd known he was a bit of a fuckboy before we got together, and never held it against him. I just hated being blindsided and feeling like I knew less about my boyfriend than some random coworkers. I asked why he didn't just tell me since he knew I'd be around them, and he said honestly didn't think it was important and mattered to me. I called bullshit because he knows how I am and he knew it would matter. He admitted he did regret sleeping with those women, as he never thought about having to bring his future girlfriend around them and tell her about it. 2 of them happened when he first joined the company straight of uni. One of those girls has left already and the other is actually dating Ben's friend who told me about Molly. He said at that point of his life he was fine sleeping around and never really thought of the consequences. I asked why his friend decided to even say anything to me about it, and he said they always try to piss each other off, and one thing that gets Ben annoyed is when someone brings up his fuckboy ways. He said after I left his friends felt bad for what they said, but I told him I never would have reacted that way if I had known, and he should have told me. He said I was trying to justify my response after apologizing. I told him I didn't want to do that. I do genuinely think what I said and did was wrong, but he can't put all the blame on me. He said the only thing he could apologize for is sleeping with a bunch of women, and since that was before me it didn't make any sense. I kept saying it was the hiding bit that upset me, and he asked what difference would it have made if I had known? I did think about that for a moment. I still would have gone, but I think I would have been a bit more hyper aware of the Molly and the other girl. He said he wanted me to be there and have a good time and didn't want to ruin it by telling me about irrelevant shit in his past, and I guess I understood that sentiment because I decided to let it go. We both were quiet there for a moment and he asked if I was done? And if I was going to end it, then I needed to pick another reason, since this would be the stupidest fucking reason. I told him I didn't want to break up and that we needed to talk about everything, but I wanted him to come sit next to me, and he did. So I asked if there were any others and he said no. I asked him who knew in the office and he said only his friend group, and they keep their mouth shut to everyone because all of them were doing the same shit. He told me he slept with Molly right before we met. I was curious about why he went into work today when it was his remote work day, and he said that his nieces wouldn't let him concentrate at home, so he just decided to go in. He did say he was furious last week and didn't know if he could move forward, but talking to his brother helped and he calmed him down. He said if I didn't text him he was planning on contacting me first today anyway so we could talk. So we didn't break up. I apologized, and while he didn't, so the same, I have decided to let it go and move on. I told him I made his favorite meal and he finally kissed me and told me he missed me. Anyway, I know some of you are gonna say he should have dumped me straight away or I should have demanded an apology, but I'm happy with the outcome. I finally had a meal and good night's sleep. Even Ben said I looked like I had lost weight. Thank for the people who have messaged me offering me advice, and I really hope I never have to give another update.